Okay, One Piece chapter 1128. This chapter is out. Listen, we've been on break, right? So sometimes you got to just go back and remember what you read. And I did that a few times because, like, well, you know, we've been on break. Again, 1128, got to talk about that cover art real quick. Luffy looking like a king, the king of Jump. We know a few series have ended, are ending. And so Luffy's at the top again. I mean, it is what it is. And we just got to accept it for what it is at this point, you know? Luffy, One Piece king, so I guess One Piece can never end. A few things got cleared up, right? The fact that they're in a place where there's a bunch of animals that are called gods, that's the first thing. The tree being fake, because a lot of us were losing our minds over that tree. I saw on Twitter, people was like, yo, this is not what Oda said. What is Oda doing? And then, again, the mistakes. Here, that's something that I don't know if it got cleared up. I mean, I think it's somewhat clear that they're not hallucinating, so I guess some of the mistakes that were made were just Oda make mistakes because it wasn't really explained as hallucinations necessarily, but it's at least cleared up where we are and where we're trying, not where we're trying to get to, but at least where we are. I like the thought process though, from each of them using their cognitive skills to kind of discern what's going on. Usopp's like, well, these are giant attire, right? So we got to be in Elbaf. And Nami's like, well, what about the size of everything, right? Have we been gigantified? And so they're trying to piece things together because they don't remember what happened, right? I had a theory that Zoro was somebody that woke up first just because he's such a drunk that even though, you know, he passed out for however long, because he's such a drunk, he's going to be the one to wake up first. Something I got to reiterate as well. Zoro's fit is absolutely top one. Sanji's is two. And then there's a gap. Then it's probably, well, okay. If we don't include the women, because, you know, Nami is, well, Nami, Zoro, Sanji, Luffy, and then Usopp. Not going to say anything. But the whole point is that this is the start of an adventure. They're figuring out information. We have people pulling up, giving them more information. That's when this guy pulls up on a grasshopper, which you know what? When you think about it, that might be effective. Grasshoppers, they hop really high. Like they're really effective in travel. So this guy pulling up on a grasshopper, I like it. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of cool. Something that did make me laugh upon rereading was when they called the castle the domain of the greatest cat. And it's like, oh, someone lives there. It was like a cat. It's like, okay. So this is basically just a place for pets and they're all called gods. Now, the title of the chapter was RPG. So this is a role-playing game. I'm assuming that these gods could be the final villains or bosses for this game that whomever that giant thing is created. And so these characters, the Straw Hats, were thrown in there to fulfill a purpose and play a role in this game. It's somewhat like we felt from the beginning. We said this is somebody who is using Nami as like a doll or dress up. And this is effectively somewhat what it is, but it's a bit deeper than that and a bit more, I guess, strategic from their standpoint because they're using these people as a part of a larger game, a larger system. It's not just a one-off. Like this is what they do. Again, this chapter is one of those transitional chapters because it's the Straw Hats getting from, okay, we've invaded a spot, we found each other, now we're finding out information. And it was funny in a few moments because this guy is talking about the gods and just all the different gods and things that's happening. He's talking about a needle god. And I was like, yo, they've packed up a few of these gods themselves. And like, it's just taking everything in them just to restrain themselves. It was like, yo, we're not trying to get in trouble here. So let's not say anything. But these gods, that's what they were feasting on in these woods. The Straw Hats are going to Straw Hat. That's one thing we know for a fact. They're going to Straw Hat. And I like the warning, right? The warning that this guy gives saying, yo, do not follow along this road. I'm like, bro, this feels so just trivial because it's like Luffy's not going to listen and he doesn't. He immediately takes on the challenge. And I like in this chapter as well, they talk about this. They kind of point out how alike and different Luffy and Zoro are, where Luffy he craves the adventure. So it's like, yo, somewhere that people will never return from. Luffy's like, oh, is that a challenge? And they talk about gardens and different people no one can defeat. And Zoro's like, is that a challenge? Like they're so competitive. You can understand like why they somewhat not follow each other because Zoro follows Luffy, but just that relationship, that dynamic and why they're so powerful and why they're who they are. Something that's interesting, I don't know if it's going to lead anywhere, but Luffy asked Usopp, hey, you could have taken that thing, right? Usopp's like, oh, well, it had me before, you know. I'm just like, is that going to go somewhere? Is this going to be like, is this the first sign of Usopp's insecurities rearing its ugly head? Because that's something that Usopp had back in Water 7 when he got basically beat down and got things stolen from him. Is this showing itself again? It was like that question, hey, Usopp, you could have. I don't think so. I just felt like it was appropriate. And Usopp, again, he shows just his value and his importance, which a lot of people aren't going to see or realize just because sometimes we're meathead And it looks like, okay, well, Usopp can't even beat this cat. Nami had to beat the cat. I'm just like, well, Usopp's existence kind of lets the others shine in that strength area, while Usopp gets to be somewhat just a filling in the gaps in other areas where I think he's one of the good characters as far as like dynamics amongst the crew with everybody. And again, he fulfills the role of that just normal person on the crew, traveling, being scared, apprehensive. And so, Usopp's value, I think, he's gonna get a value that we would want from a warrior in Elbaf. I don't think we're gonna get the extent that we expect, but we're gonna get some of it for sure. So again, the Strides, they find out that they're in a room because Luffy's running the gauntlet of this road, and he runs into what looks like a mirror. What was funny was Luffy saying he's going down the road and he sees like somebody's like, yo, it's funny, somebody's coming up, I'm just gonna dodge him. And it's like, well, it's a reflection of himself. He just destroys this mirror or this actual wall. And then they fall into a place to realize it's an actual giant room. They find Chopper, then they realize, oh, we're like stuck here and we can see from the other side of the room what's actually going on. So we get confirmation that there is a giant or someone, it was a giant's room. So somebody really big, more than likely a giant, that had everybody stored in this place with a magic mirror, which is basically a reversible mirror where you can only see it on one side, one-way mirror, rather, you can only see through one side. And they were using these as their entertainment, RPG. And then we meet the Guardians as well, of course, that the Straw Hats, they have to fight. And Luffy's just like, you know what, I think I want to blow away this guy. And it was like this large snake, which, of course, a Guardian is going to be a snake. It's always a snake. We then see this giant thing walking with a mask on, like with antlers. It looks like a deer mask, whatever it is. Walking towards that area where they at. Luffy goes Gear 5, and Gear 5 looks really dope because it has horns, right? I'm just like, yo, Oda only went Gear 5 here just to show off that design. Gear 5 is Oda just having a blast, and it's like, yo, let's just give him horns, bro. It's like, how can we do that? Let's let him go Gear 5. And so it's just, Luffy didn't need Gear 5 for this thing. And him going Gear 5 is just, bro, is this him having a good time? So I'm not mad at it. I thought it was funny. It's like Luffy, he's transformed, he's packing up these Guardians, and Usopp was like, Luffy, the Sun God's back. And Luffy, the Sun God, is actually like, huh? So it's Oda just playing with so many different verbiage that we know of and things that we don't know. And I think it's actually pretty cool. I think it's actually really cool. So Luffy, to get out of there, he used Booming Dawn Pistol on his Guardian. He does not attack the giant, and I think that's strategic, right? Oda has an obligation now to deliver on the promise of the giants, because the promise was that these giants, the giant army that Big Mom wanted, would have made her basically put her above the Yonko, right? This would give her the edge she would need to become the Pirate King or Queen. So in actuality, Oda has to deliver on the promise of these giants. And so far, most people can agree that giants have not been the most formidable in a lot of people's minds. So Oda has to deliver. And I think here, not having Luffy and the others just completely obliterate this giant, which they could. I don't care who it is. They could. Not having them do that, it is kind of maintaining the giant's honor in a little bit, where it's just like, yo, we don't want to just completely destroy these guys yet. And this person, whomever this is, because some people saying this could be Freya, this could be Loki, people saying this could be the new princess that they have to help. They didn't fight it. Right now, so we have to say it, but it also has a mask for a reason, and they also kept Chopper. So it's like, is it like a fan of animals? Are these animals in here because it's trying to protect them because they were in danger? Did it keep Chopper because Chopper resembled the mask that it had on? So many questions, but I don't think it's going to lead to the side of this person or this thing being absolutely terrible. I mean, this thing could be like, would they actually help? Yes, RPG sounds crazy, but these animals are heralded as gods in this world that they created. Now, some people saying One Piece is like going to release a Lego set. That's why Oda drew this. I'm like, yo, maybe, would you get it? Probably. But ultimately, it's transitioning. It's transitioning, giving us a bunch of information. This chapter felt long just because it's so much going on. It's a lot to take in. It reminded me of like one of those Dressrosa chapters in the Coliseum where it was just like, okay, wait, what? It's not saying it's a cluster, because it wasn't. It was just like, bro, it's a lot happening, but we're still in the same spot. Now we did get story progression, right? We did get a lot of not a lot. We did get story progression. We went from not knowing anything to now we know somewhat where we are. What about the place about where we are? what's going on where we are and then where we need to get to. So it has progressed. I don't want to say significantly, but it has progressed quite a bit. And so from this point forward, I think the story really starts to unravel about who this person is going after them, because she's right there. I'm saying she. I don't know why I keep saying she. I guess because in my head, I already feel like it could be the princess that they need to help or whatever. But this is where the story is going right now. This is what Elbaf is going to be, bro. It's going to be a bunch of giant shit. It's going to be a bunch of lore. But I like the start so far. I love the fits. It's been funny as well. A lot of Straw Hats being together, the OG Straw Hats being together. I don't want to like sing a lot of some of the other guys like Ranky, Jinbei, Brooke, but it's really cool seeing these guys interact again, especially Zoro and Sanji. Like, it's been somewhat not contentious, but just like random shit happening in the arcs and Egghead and Wano. Here it's like it feels a bit more laid back. They can have more jokes. They can be themselves. And I think in general it's been good. Overall, this chapter is, I don't want to say a nothing burger in regards to the grand scheme of things because it's progressing the story. But if you're coming into this chapter expecting just a whole bunch of crazy hype, I'm sorry, this chapter isn't for you, but this chapter is absolutely necessary. I feel like I always have to say that because there are going to be people that are like, oh my God, this chapter was so mid. I'm just like, oh yeah, probably. But this chapter, we need mediocre chapters. These chapters progress the story. It led us from, bro, we're just in this place where we're assuming Elbaf. We don't know what's going on to now we know what we are, know somewhat where we are and where we need to get to. I think that's all I can ask for. Happened pretty quickly too. This chapter felt jam-packed, no break next week. Nothing to complain about, to be honest. I mean, if you've been reading One Piece this long, this chapter should not bother you. It's not bothering me. I'll say that. But yeah, let me know what you think. Like the video, subscribe. We have some stuff to talk about, some inferences based on what was mentioned in this chapter about who this person is as well. Very mischievous. I don't want to say this is low-key, but there could be some hints as to who this person is. And we'll touch on that in the future. So yeah, like, subscribe. Catch you in the next one. Peace.